What's up, guys? Brady Fugel here, coming at you with a review of the new Orbit Culture album Death Above Life, released 1 week ago today, October 3rd. Despite this band being around for, I think this is their 5th album, this is my first time getting into them. I was very intrigued just because of the amount of hype that this album seemed to buzz up from other content creators and comments. So I was very curious to check this album out, give it a shot as a new listener and an honest review. From the research I did do, I was expecting to hear some Swedish mellow death. I mean, they're from Sweden. They were listed, at least on Wikipedia, as melodic death metal and groove metal. But when I first listened to this record, I was kind of taken back and surprised because I didn't hear any Swedish mellow death influence whatsoever. To me, the overall sound of this record takes a lot from groove metal, so I do agree with that label, but as opposed to melodic death, to me, this album has a lot more in common with metalcore. From the dynamic between the clean vocals and the scream vocals, also just a lot of the instrumental ideas on here resemble things like breakdowns. So one thing I will say right off the bat is that this album was not what I was expecting to hear, which I kind of like. When you're like me and you're just listening to music all the time, and especially analyzing it for reviews and YouTube content, it's genuinely refreshing when you go into an album after doing research on a band and you expect to hear a certain sound and the band kind of surprises you and comes out of left field with a totally different style. So while I enjoyed the surprise I got from the style of this band's sound on this record doesn't really do anything for me. And I'm going to explain why. I'm going to be very specific, so any of you watching this, whether you're a fan of this band or just someone watching my content, knows exactly where I'm coming from. But first, I will single out the intro track, Inferna, which has a series of killer, addictive grooves that really does start this album off with a bang. Like, when I first was listening to this song, I was hyped for just the rest of the album to follow suit, and I was hoping for even more infectious and creative and genuinely, like I said, addicting grooves. That's one of my biggest draws to any kind of metal music, and that's why groove metal is one of my favorite subgenres of metal. But after that first track, for my taste, this album does nothing for me. Even starting out, track 2 here, Bloodhound, I mean, you get that machine gun-esque rapid-fire double bass drumming with just this really dull, simplistic chug riff over it. A section like that intro part where the drums are just so much more aggressive and urgent than the guitar part, it just kind of makes for a somewhat underwhelming and at times even lethargic intro to this song. And then the entire song just ends up being really, really simplistic again and really caveman. The whole extremely repetitive, you fucked it up, and then just dropping the fucking F-bomb countless times on this song gets old really fast. That kind of rhythmic vocal cadence in the chorus doesn't really add a lot to the song's urgency for me. And then the next track, Inside the Waves, kind of suffers from similar ideas here. There's a really thin-sounding main riff, both stylistically and sonically production-wise. The instrumental ideas overall in the song are just fairly uninteresting and not very adventurous or creative. The clean vocals on this record are something that does overall take back the listening experience a little bit, just because I feel like they're a little bit too Hetfieldy sometimes, and they just come off a little bit forced. And this track, Inside the Waves, is one of the biggest instances of that. I just feel like the clean vocals, they have just like this forced grit on them to make them sound overly edgy. Like the band and the production crew were in the studio while the vocalist was laying down these songs. And they were saying like, oh no, you got to do that again, but make it sound harder, make it sound raspier, make it sound more aggressive, more gritty. And that's something that just doesn't do it for me at the end of the day. When it jumps out at you like it was aiming and like the band put effort in to give it that extra grit, as opposed to it just coming naturally in the songwriting itself. There's a big difference there, at least for me. Or like the title track. I mean, you listen to this song and it's got, again, just a really basic, generic chug riff that drives the song. And literally, I took note of this. Up until the 4:23 mark, rhythmically, it's the exact same thing the entire fucking song up until that point, rhythmically, with the exception of some ambient gaps that get thrown in there. Stuff like that just comes off like so uninspired, and like they just said, okay, let's just extend this part for as long as we can to make up for the fact that we don't have any better ideas for this song. You'll notice though, like, aside from maybe that vocal issue I pointed out, I haven't really mentioned anything on this record that is straight up like bad or painful for me to listen to. There's just a lot of underwhelming ideas on here, especially instrumentally and riff-wise. What ends up frustrating me about this album is when the band shows like little flashes of potential, but then these little like ideas that I think could be explored upon and result in more interesting songs end up just being snuffed out, and they end up being like these little insignificant glimpses inside what is otherwise like just more of the same shit on here and more underwhelming stuff. Like on the song Hydra, like you get somewhat of a dark intro, but then it leads into another boring mid-tempo chug riff, and then later in the song, at exactly the 2:15 mark, this cool tremolo riff creeps in, but it ends up getting completely drowned out in the mix when the full band kicks in. It's like that little part that I actually thought was cool just gets absolutely crushed by more of the same bullshit on here, and the vocals kick in and it drowns it out even more. It's so frustrating. And then the entire part transitioned into a clean chorus. It's like, okay, that little part that I thought was cool ended up being nothing in the song. And then on the production front, on a track like Neural Collapse, I think if the band was produced a little better, especially the guitars, that main groove probably would have sounded pretty good. And now we'll get to my biggest criticism of this album by far, is that these songs are way too fucking long. Holy shit. Like, why is every song on here so long? They're long for no reason, because 90% of the time, by the time you get, I don't know, past the 3 or 4 minute mark in the song is either extremely repetitive up until that point, or past that point, no new creative ideas get added on. Like again, on Neural Collapse, the song is so long that by the time that ambient break in that final heavy part comes in, the song just has absolutely no momentum or energy behind it to imply and justify that final impactful kick in. And as a result, it doesn't hit. It feels like it just doesn't make sense. I've already singled out the title track, Death Above Life, for just being way too rhythmically repetitive, the overwhelming majority of the song. And also Bloodhound, when they do the whole you fucked it up thing, again, just way too long and way too repetitive. But there's other examples too. Like The Tales of War is a song that tries so hard to be dramatic and tug at your heartstrings with these string sections themselves. But like the main riff, again, is just so flat sounding, and it goes on for way too long. Even with some subtle changes in it, it goes on just shy of a full minute of this just really dull, underwhelming chug riff. There's like this little flaccid guitar solo that comes in later in the song, and just the way this song tries so hard to be dramatic and just epically fails at the end of the day, it's way too long of a song. Same with Nerve. It tries really hard to sound climactic and to sound emotional and to hit you right in the heart, and it just doesn't. It's got more sluggish mid-tempo riffing and this like lazy metalcore-ish lead section that comes in, and the song ends up again being way too fucking long. Even Inferno, which is really the only song I enjoy on here, the song should end right after that bridge section, but it keeps dragging on with these unnecessary melodic parts that just add absolutely nothing to the song. If you cut off this song right after that bridge, you got a really punchy, infectious groove metal track. But the band on this song and on this record, they just don't know where to end it at the end of the day. Like they're trying to do too much. They're trying to overextend these songs, and it really hurts them in the end. As far as overall notes, I do like vocally the sound and the style of the harsh vocals on here. The growls sound really like deep and visceral, and they do hit pretty hard when they're done right. And I will give the band at least some points for doing at least a somewhat unique and different sound that not a lot of other bands are really going for nowadays. But they don't execute it well, at least on this record. So I mean, if any fans of this band are watching and judging by my critiques, you think I might enjoy one of their older records better, let me know in the comments, and I would definitely be interested in checking it out. I do see some potential in here, like I singled out in Inferna, and also the closing ballad, The Path I Walk, is okay. It's definitely one of the better tracks on here. I didn't hate it. I think the clean vocal performance when they're done in a way that's less just explicitly gritty, that it works pretty well. But aside from those moments, that's really it for this album. I really don't like the riffing style on here, like I mentioned several times, and overall the music on here is just way too simplistic and caveman for me. The instruments oftentimes just don't feel like they have much of an identity on this record, aside from just providing background music for the vocals, which is a huge pet peeve of mine in any rock or metal music. The songs are way too long. The album overall feels very overproduced, especially in the guitar tone, and also the drums, which just sound really mechanical. I went in with an open mind, but I'm sorry guys, I did not like this record at all. This album gets a 7 out of 30 for me. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you're a fan of this band, please defend it in the comments, respond to anything I've said in this video. Tell me why I'm right or wrong. Give me some recommendations on their back catalog that I would, like I said, be interested in checking out. Also, remember to hit subscribe for more rock and metal-related content. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.